I don't think anybody assumes that Chattanooga isn't in trouble. I don't think anybody here in this room assumes that we don't know the story of two Chattanoogas. My organization's talked about it. Other organizations have talked about it. We know it's a reality. But just how bad is it? I'm going to discuss some of the facts. And all of the facts that I'm going to read to you, again, are available on our website at chataction.org under issues. But they're sourced through newspapers, New York Times, U.S. Census, citizen-reviewed reports here in Chattanooga. Let's go ahead and get into it. Poverty and economic inequity. A New York Times article on America's growing poor and low-income populations featured Chattanooga as a highlight of several disturbing new trends. The article found that 27% of the city's residents live below the poverty line. That's nearly double the national average. Out of that number, women head 2/3 of the city's poor households, and 42% of its children are poor, nearly double the rate statewide. This is in a New York Times article that came out just several months ago and made the front page of the business section. Okay, that's poverty. 27% of our citizens live below the poverty line. Some additional facts on top of there. Annual median income for the average person living in the west side census district. Does anybody know it?
Average income?
Where you live?
$12,000.
$9,000. $9,000 a year family in the west side. A stone's throw from there. Let's talk about economic inequality. We've heard a lot about that recently, right? So Chattanooga ranks 12th in the nation for economic inequality out of the top 100 markets for the ratio of lower income households to higher income households. For every one household earning $200,000 or more, there are 20 earning less than $50,000. I'm going to repeat that back to you. For every one household earning $200,000 or more, there are 20 earning less than $50,000. Over half of all income earned in Chattanooga area was earned by the top 20% of all household earners. There's a whole other plethora of facts that I could add to poverty and economic inequality. And here at the end, I'll ask if you all know statistics or stories or insights into this. Let's go ahead and jump into health and education. I'm pretty sure you all remember that front page story on the Times Free Press that said Chattanooga ranks as the 8th most unhealthy city in the country. Despite having access to hiking trails, bicycles, gyms, despite having Little Debbie sponsor the Ironman competition, which I think is somewhat ironic.
Yes.
Somewhat ironic, right? Maybe we can see a little bit of the problem. 8th most unhealthy city in the country. Now that includes heart disease, STDs, infant mortality, and also mental health as well. And again, you can go on our website, pull up all these facts, pull up every article, pull up every fact that I'm citing right here. Adults of workforce age, that's between 18 and retirement age. Adults of workforce age are falling behind in education, as 17% of adults do not have a high school diploma. In some of our poorest neighborhoods, over 40% of adults do not have a high school diploma. 40% do not have a high school diploma. And we know how little a high school diploma can get, right, in today's day and age. Okay, housing and transit, I missed that right there. But housing and transit, 1 out of every 2 households in Chattanooga's urban core are experiencing some form of economic hardship as it relates to housing costs. It means they're either moderately or severely burdened as it relates to their ability to pay the rent or the mortgage. 1 out of every 2 renters in the urban core of Chattanooga, that's from Hill City to St. Elmo, from the river to the ridge, a huge population center is. 1 out of every 2 renters are paying at least 30% or more of their take-home pay per month towards the rent, plus utilities, not counting transportation. Here's where it gets really bad. 1 out of every 4 renters, 1 out of every 4 renters in the urban core of Chattanooga pay more than 50% of their monthly take-home pay to the rent and utilities. And for those of us who have been poor or know poor people, you also know that you can't just calculate living costs based upon groceries, rent, mortgage, or utilities. Transportation is an incredible factor. Well, unfortunately, again, if you go on our website, the Brookings Institute ranked Chattanooga as having incredibly under-resourced public transportation, both to get to work and in the amount of people that are using the routes and in the routes that are available to them. In terms of public housing, Chattanooga Organized for Action has talked about this a lot. Thousands and thousands of our public housing units have been torn down since at least the year 2000. Spencer J. McCauley, Harriet Tubman. The largest two remaining public housing units, College Hills and East Lake Courts, right? Slated for demolition within the next 3 to 5 years. You all remember that big Times Free Press story that came out about it. Okay, well, what happens when you get kicked out of public housing or when it's demolished? You get a Section 8 housing voucher, right? Well, a couple of weeks ago, the Housing Authority handing out housing vouchers to recipients who had been waiting several years out of thousands to receive a Section 8 housing voucher. We're told only 30% of recipients of the voucher will even find a landlord to take it in the first place. And what happens when your voucher expires? There, do you know? You're out. You're done. You lose. Also, Chattanooga has no permanent emergency ownership. So you can see how an individual can completely fall through the cracks.
Perrin, are you reading from?
No, I'm reading from my own presentation. Again, chataction.org. I'll make sure everybody has it at the end. Let's talk about the last point here, disparities. Chattanooga's economic disparities are felt disproportionately by its marginalized populations. We already know the face of poverty. We discussed that, right? It's a woman. It's children. Let's talk about how that divides upon race and ethnicity. Black households, according to the U.S. Census in 2010, make an average of $26,787 per year, while for whites, $51,000. Almost double. 60% of black children live in poverty, compared to 16.5% of white children. So clearly, we've got something wrong in Chattanooga. Now, take all the facts that I just laid out for you. All the facts. And then when you leave this meeting, despite whatever we do, go out, go down Market Street, go down Broad Street, go down Main, see the new houses, see the fancy art and the nice sidewalks and the riverfront, and ask yourself a question. What's the priority in Chattanooga? Who's the priority? Is it poor and working people? Is it communities of color? Who and what are the priorities? Who are making the decisions? You know, we have to ask ourselves a question after having reviewed all the facts that are just laid out there for you. We have to ask ourselves a question. Is this it? Is this it? Especially for those of us that have already had their children and their grandchildren and that are looking at the expanse of their life, you have to ask yourself, is this the city that we're leaving? Our children? Our families? Or can we do something different? Can we become a progressive city of the South? Can we take every policy tool, every innovative idea that other cities are using and see what works here? You know, when I originally came up with the idea with some friends of mine to form Poverty Free Chattanooga as a campaign out of COA, we thought, you know, well, let's go ask Mayor Burke. Let's go ask Mayor Burke. Burke, darn it, do something that relates to this. But you know, we're not going to ask him to form a task force. We're not going to ask anybody to form anything. We're going to do it ourselves. And here's the thing you need to know. You don't have to be a policymaker. You don't have to be a researcher. You don't have to be a judge or a politician. You can be in that great, unelected mass of leadership. It really makes this city and this country a place worth living in. And I think it still can make it a place that's worth living in. I think we can turn around all those facts that we talked about. But it's going to take work, right? It's going to take everyday people like yourselves getting out there, finding the solutions, trying them, calling the politicians, calling the policymakers, showing up to meetings and not letting them go until we change some things in Chattanooga. And whether it's going to be Chattanooga Organized for Action that does it, or Poverty Free Chattanooga that does it, or whatever group or individual or institution that comes after me, that doesn't matter, it's going to be you. So I want you all to stay in there with me and make Chattanooga a better place. So, there's my speechifying for right now. Sparka is going to lead the rest of the way.